Hi guys, today just a brief introduction. I'm going to run a slideshow of the remaining part of the European trip, mainly Strassburg, and then there will be a little bit of Würzburg, Rothenburg, and Nördlingen, and that'll be the end of that. I will come back and explain something at the end. So for now, just watch the slideshow, okay? This is a little cruise boat that we used in order to get an overview of the city of Strasbourg. And then in the next picture you see a bridge with a couple of towers. Now these towers were built around in the 13th century, long time ago. So you will notice that one of the towers, the one on the left, was used for people who were to be executed, to be prepared for that, and the tower on the right was for the actual execution. And usually these executions were done by beheading. And if it was a religious crime or a heretic crime, then the beheading would be preceded by ripping out your tongue, and then later on you would be beheaded. Pretty horrible fate. Now one day the executioner himself got in trouble. Maybe he used one goddamn too many. Whatever happened, he was condemned to death, to suffer the same fate. Now, he was the previous executioner and he had good connections to the judge. So while he was sitting in the first tower, he made an appeal and was hoping that his sentence would be reduced. The judge, after consideration, decided that he was going to reduce the sentence, and so it was changed from removal of the tongue and beheading to first beheading and then the removal of the tongue. Now, isn't that a lovely story? This is what we heard from the guide. Now, normally I'm not terribly interested in churches. I've seen too many of them. ABC, another bloody church, another bloody castle. You get too much after a while. But there is a particular one in in the town or city of Rothenburg. Now, Rothenburg is an interesting city. I think anyone who would have a chance to go there should really make a point of seeing it. It's quaint, it's very unusual, but it's very touristy as well. But there is a church in there, and in that church is an altar. Normally that would leave me cold pretty much, but this is something you have to see it to believe it. The artwork, the carving that was done on this altar by a guy by the name of Riemenschneider, who used to live in about 1500, is unbelievable. It's something you have to see to believe. And I'm showing you the altar in one picture, and in the next one I'll show you a close-up. And if you really look closely and you see the folds in their dresses, and it's just indescribable. It's really something you need to see to believe. Now the next two pictures are of the residents in the city of Würzburg. Now, Würzburg, unfortunately, was virtually totally destroyed at the end of the war. It was almost as bad as Dresden, and it was really totally unnecessary. The war was almost over at that time, and there were only civilians there. But whatever, it was completely rebuilt. And this is the residence of some sort of minor potentate who thought he was a king, and you should see it, and it's just incredible, the ornate furnishings in there. Things that normally interest me is that, let's say there were parties of 500, 600 people and no washrooms. So I was always wondering how they handled this particular problem. And the answer came in one case where a chest of drawers, very ornate and like done in the old days with all sorts of hardware on it, turned into a toilet. You raised the lid and then you opened the two wings, and it turned out to be a velvet covered toilet seat. And under that was a chamber pot. And this thing was shoved against the wall, and all along the wall on the outside was a hallway that was used by the servants. So they would empty the chamber pot and put a new one in. And well, man, oh man, what a setup that must have been. And at a party of 500 people, can you imagine? Well, anyway, there's another thing that's peculiar about this building is the big wide doors in the front. You will notice them. They are meant so that carriages could drive right into the building, turn around, and drop the passengers off at a huge staircase. Now, that's class, if you don't mind my saying so. Marie Antoinette of Austria, the Queen, was there at one time, and when she was told about toilet facilities and that sort of thing, she bragged about the fact and said, I take a bath once a year whether I need it or not. And you can imagine what that stench must have been like. Now, the next picture is of a bus and some characters in front of it. These are supposed to be German soldiers, and man oh man, if that's what they look like today, what a disappointment. I mean, they used to be the sharpest looking outfit in the world, the best soldiers in the world during World War II. And if this is what they are looking at now, I wouldn't expect too much. But then on the other hand, this was a group of musicians, so maybe I should make excuses for that, but I thought they were rather pathetic looking. Okay, now the next thing, picture is of a McDonald's, believe it or not. So a home away from home. And you will notice that it is done in a rather tasteful way. It doesn't offend in any way. The signage is very dignified, and the whole thing looks pretty snazzy. Then I'll show you a picture to make your mouth water, because it's of a waitress and the food displayed in a coffee shop. The waitress is always dressed in very interestingly in a long gown. It's an apron, but it really doesn't look like an apron at all. But the food, isn't that something else? Now when you see that selection, it'll make your mouth water. And I think I'll stop at this point and let you drool a little bit while I get back to you. So let's leave it at that for now. Well, I promised to tell you something at the end of this little episode. What I wanted to tell you is that when we first started out, when I did the first segment, I said there was something mysterious about this, that I was misleading you on purpose, and that I was wondering whether you would find out about it. Now, one of you has answered and has come up with an answer, and the answer was that she said, look, something isn't right. You mentioned you left England, but actually I didn't say that. I said the ship left Southampton. Well, that's true, but the ship didn't start in Southampton. I started in Bremerhaven. I'm actually German. So I started in Bremerhaven. I went via England to Canada, and the story goes from there. So she was curious about the fact that I had indicated that I had participated in World War II, but on the other hand, she figured my age was against that. I must have been 17 years old, and in the British as well as in the American Army, they weren't taking them that young. Well, they might do it now, but they didn't do it then. And so in the German Army, they certainly did. And I did serve my stint in the German Army, there's no question about that. And I could tell you about that, not that I'm crazy about doing this, because there are always some very pleasant memories involved, but I would like to have some inputs from you guys. That's one possibility about the war, but the other things are hobbies. I have a hobby of writing science fiction, and I love cars, always did, and always tinkered with them. That might be another possibility. So then also the time after the Yukon, I went as an outside salesman and did a lot of work and had some very interesting adventures in that during that era. And of course I met my wife, and we got married and we had children, so on and so forth. So let me know a little bit of what you would like to hear, and I can go from there. So why don't we leave it at that for now and let you get over the shock, and hopefully you will not be turned off too much. So we'll go from there. So long.